Disclaimer. The information in this podcast has been researched by a real person. However, the conversation is artificially generated. I hope you'll enjoy today's episode. The Silk Road and the Birth of Long-Distance Trade.
Welcome back to the Sales Foundation podcast. Today we're unraveling one of history's greatest networks, the Silk Road. The story of how humanity's first long-distance trade transformed cultures, economies, and even the way people saw the world.
The Silk Road. Just the name makes me think of endless caravans, spices in colorful sacks, silks shining in the sun, and dusty camels trekking through deserts. But to kick things off, it wasn't really one road, was it?
Exactly right. Term Silk Road was only coined in the 19th century by a German geographer, Ferdinand von Richthofen. What he was describing wasn't a single paved highway but a massive web of overland and maritime routes, stretching some 600 to 700 kilometers, that connected China, Central Asia, the Middle East, and Europe.
So a network instead of a road. Makes sense. And it all started during China's Han Dynasty, right?
Yes. Around the 2nd century BCE, Emperor Wu sent his envoy Zhang Qian westward to look for allies against the nomadic Xiongnu. Zhang didn't find many allies, but he discovered something more valuable: new kingdoms, new goods, and new opportunities.
And that's when the Chinese realized, hey, we've got something the rest of the world craves. Silk.
Exactly. Silk became the superstar commodity. The Romans were obsessed with it. Roman senators and aristocrats draped themselves in Chinese silk robes. Pliny the Elder even complained in the 1st century CE that Rome was losing too much gold buying silk. He called it a moral weakness.
Imagine being Pliny, sitting in Rome, ranting that everyone's spending fortunes on see-through silks from a mysterious faraway land.
And that's what's fascinating. Most Romans didn't even know where silk came from. They just knew it arrived from the east through middlemen in Persia and Central Asia.
So, silk went west, and gold and silver went east. But the trade wasn't just one way, was it?
Not at all. From the west came glassware, wine, olive oil, and later even woolen textiles. Horses from Central Asia were highly prized in China, especially the famous Fergana horses, nicknamed blood-sweating horses.
Blood-sweating horses?
Yes, they got the name because these horses would sometimes bleed from parasites under their skin. But the Chinese saw them as diving, strong, almost supernatural. They were key to strengthening Chinese cavalry.
So silk for horses, a trade that shaped armies and empires. That's pretty epic.
And we can't forget the ideas and inventions. Paper, invented in China around the 2nd century BCE, slowly spread westwards. Gunpowder, too. Meanwhile, religions like Buddhism traveled east along the Silk Road. By the 1st century CE, Buddhist monks were moving into China via caravan routes.
And then later, Islam spread eastward along those same routes. It's almost like the Silk Road wasn't just about goods, it was about culture.
Exactly. Take Chang'an modern Zan. During the Tang dynasty, it was a melting pot. Persian musicians, Indian monks, Arab traders, and Central Asian merchants all living together. Imagine walking through its markets, hearing dozens of languages, smelling spices from India, seeing silk bolts stacked next to Roman glassware.
That sounds like a global bazaar, centuries before globalization was even a concept.
That's why historians often call the Silk Road the first internet. It linked people, ideas, and cultures across continents.
But let's not romanticize it too much. It wasn't all smooth sailing, right? These journeys were brutal.
Oh, definitely. Traders faced deserts like the Taklamakan, whose name literally means you go in and never come out. There were sandstorms. Mountains like the Pamirs, bandits waiting along the way. Caravans could take months, even years, to reach their destinations.
That is why caravanserais, roadside inns, became so important. They weren't just pit stops. They were safe havens where traders could rest, exchange news, and secure their goods.
Yes, and some of those caravanserais grew into full-fledged cities. Samarkand, for example, became a jewel of Central Asia. Its wealth came from being a crossroads. You could buy silk, spices, gems, and manuscripts all in one place.
And then you've got Kashgar at the western edge of China, where the northern and southern routes of the Silk Road split. That city was like the beating heart of the trade network.
Exactly. And then later, under the Mongols in the 13th century, the Silk Road entered a golden age. Genghis Khan and his successors created the largest contiguous land empire in history. For about a century, they stabilized and protected trade routes, making long-distance travel safer.
That's when Marco Polo traveled, right?
Yes, the Venetian merchant. He journeyed to China and spent time at Kublai Khan's court. When he returned to Europe, his stories captivated people. Europeans couldn't get enough of tales about China's riches, paper money, coal, and massive cities.
So Marco Polo was like the influencer of his day. His book inspired people like Christopher Columbus centuries later.
Exactly. Columbus actually had a copy of Polo's book with him when he set sail.
So, when overland routes became too dangerous, after the Mongols declined and the Byzantine Empire fell, Europeans started looking for new ways to connect with Asia. That's what fueled the age of exploration.
And that's the Silk Road's legacy. It was the foundation for global trade. Without it, we might not have had the voyages of Columbus, Vasco da Gama, or Magellan.
So the Silk Road wasn't just about silk. It was about discovery, curiosity, and the realization that the world is bigger and richer than we imagine.
From silks in Rome to spices in Samarkand, from Buddhist teachings in China to Marco Polo stories in Venice, every thread of the Silk Road wove humanity closer together.
That's all for today's journey on the Sales Foundation podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe.
And join us next time when we'll uncover another turning point in the history of trade. Till then, remember, every route tells a story.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and will join us for our next weekly episode, as we'll dive into Dale Carnegie and his How to Win Friends legacy.